on Unsolved Mysteries.
A bitterly cold night, an icy road, a young woman stranded in sub-zero temperatures. 7 hours later, she is found, literally frozen stiff, with death just a heartbeat away. In desperation, her friends and family start a prayer chain, believing that only a miracle can save her life. In Florida, 2 young hoodlums embark on a night of terror, a wild rampage that ends in murder. Today, one of the men remains at large. Have you seen Albert Leon Fletcher? As a ramp supervisor at Northwest Airlines, Sue Taraskiewicz was a rarity in a world dominated by men. For years, she reportedly endured an angry onslaught of sexual harassment on the job. However, Sue refused to give in to the alleged bigotry, right up until the day she was brutally murdered. Did you know that Elvis Presley had a twin brother who died at birth? Some believe this little-known tragedy was both the inspiration for Elvis Presley's greatness and the haunting secret behind his untimely death. Join me for another intriguing edition of Unsolved Mysteries. Do you believe in miracles? If you don't, maybe it's because you haven't yet heard about Jeanne Hilliard and the night she collapsed in the snow and froze almost as solid as a block of ice for more than 6 hours. It was December 20th, 1980. Jeanne was 19 years old and driving to her home outside a small town in northern Minnesota. She chose the scenic route, a country road she had driven routinely 100 times before. But tonight would be different.
I tried to get it back on the road, but it just kept sliding farther and farther in the ditch. I did think of possibly staying there for just a few seconds, but I was afraid of maybe carbon monoxide poisoning, somebody coming along finding me alone, or that I would just sit there all night before anybody came by. I knew neighbors that lived on the road, and I didn't think they were very far away, so I decided to walk.
It was a decision Jeanne would come to regret. It was 25 degrees below zero, with a wind chill factor -70. Even for Minnesota, it was extremely cold, and Jeanne was hardly dressed for the outdoors. She wore a thin sweater and parka, jeans, and dressy cowboy boots. She had no hat, not even a hood on her parka.
I did feel the cold, but I didn't feel it was too cold to be in. And the cold didn't enter my mind as being dangerous at all, because I was used to being out in the cold all my life.
Jeanne trudged along, unaware that every second the cold was sapping precious heat from her body, bringing her closer to a perilous state of hypothermia. The cold was so debilitating, it took Jeanne more than an hour to walk 1.5 miles. Finally, Jeanne caught sight of her friend's house.
I had walked and walked for so long, and I finally saw my friend's house. And at that point, I was just so relieved. There it is. I'm almost there. And that's the last thing I remember.
The sun rose on a clear, bitterly cold day. Jeanne's friend opened the door to a horrible sight. Jeanne was literally frozen stiff, her face fixed in an icy white grimace. At the small local hospital, the nursing staff was stunned. They'd seen hundreds of frostbite cases, but they'd never seen anything like this.
She was so cold, it was like reaching into a freezer. Like picking out a frozen stick of wood that was so cold, non-bendable. Her face was absolutely white. It was absolutely colorless, just this ashen death look.
She was severely frostbitten. None of her limbs would bend or move, and really things looked very grim.
We did hook her up to the monitor, and we got this agonal rhythm, like one beat. It was just like one and nothing. So then, too, we knew that we had something. But, that's a death rhythm.
Any signs?
She's got a respiration of 3, heart rate 10.
Like ice. 10?
When a person gets frostbite, what we're basically talking about is freezing of the limbs. That actually means ice crystals forming in the cells, and in so doing, they destroy many of the cells of the body. It's a lot like a burn with tissue destruction. After the hands and feet maybe start the initial stages of frostbite, and the core temperature of the body drops. The heart, the lungs, the internal organs of the abdomen, the brain, when those start to cool, that's referred to as hypothermia. And as they start to cool, it becomes more and more difficult for them to perform their functions until finally they stop. At that point, the patient would more than likely die.
The hospital staff pulled out all its resources, but Rosie Erickson, a hospital office worker, worried it wouldn't be enough. Rosie knew what Jeanne needed, a miracle.
I called the pastor of our church, and I stated simply that Jeanne Hilliard from the Lyngby area was brought into the hospital in a frozen condition, very critical, and that she needed prayer.
Hello, Patty. Yeah. This is Pastor Erickson.
Hi, Pastor.
With the blessing of the family, the word went out. The prayer chain started about 9 that morning. Within 10 minutes, more than 30 people were praying for Jeanne.
Hello.
But would it work? Could anything save Jeanne's
I
life?
have a prayer request that we need to pass on right away.
I believe it probably was like 10 minutes to 10 when one of the nurses came by and yelled in, "Rosie, we think Jeanne is going to make it." And I looked up at the clock, and it still sends chills up my arms and my spine to remember that I looked and thought, yes, people are praying now and God is answering prayer.
It was more than anyone ever expected. Less than 2 hours after the prayer chain began, Jeanne had suddenly gone into violent spasms. Though the danger was far from over, it was a good sign, a sign of returning life. Even so, Jeanne's family was told to expect the worst. The doctors and nurses worried that even if Jeanne regained consciousness, she might be seriously brain damaged.
It's like this all over.
Moreover, the frostbite was so severe that amputating Jeanne's legs seemed inevitable.
Some SSD cream.
Yes, doctor.
I don't know.
She just didn't look real. It was like, this can't be. And I remember Mom and I didn't even say a word to each other. There was nothing we could say that would describe it. We just were, I guess, shocked.
Jeanne. Jeannie, I'm sorry. I've got to ask you a couple questions.
I woke up in the hospital about noon.
Very good. Very good.
Things were
How many fingers am I?
kind of hazy, and people were asking me questions as to who I am and things like that. And I couldn't figure out why they were talking to me that way or why they were treating me that way. And it's, of course I knew these people. Of course I knew who I was. I mean, what's the big deal?
Hi, honey.
When Jeannie first came to and we knew that she was going to live, it was an extreme relief. But what was more miraculous to me was her legs recovering. Every time we lifted the sheet, we could see the white just moving down. The black was disappearing little by little, and to me, I still think that was just unbelievable.
Just the fact that she was alive was when everyone said that she wasn't going to make it. And it wasn't so much that they didn't have faith or they didn't believe, but it was just the severity of what had happened.
Jeanne spent 49 days in the hospital. In defiance of everything her doctors knew about frostbite, she recovered completely.
It was enough that she survived. That was a wonderful enough thing. But to have this added gain of not losing any fingers or toes, and in fact just having what I guess would be minor scars, this is remarkable.
15 years later, Jeanne still lives in Minnesota and is a mother of 3 children. She credits her miraculous escape from death not only to the doctors and nurses who treated her, but also to the chain of friends and neighbors who prayed for her.
I just think without all those people that I might not have survived. There are other people across the nation that same night that were found in the same condition I was in, and they died. I really believe that it was the hand of God, that it was His way of responding to everybody that was responding to me. No one was going to give up on me, and I guess maybe He responded to that too.
Next, a dead woman's diary reveals a shocking campaign of sexual harassment and a possible key to her murder. And later, Elvis Presley was one. So were thousands of less notable people. A fascinating look at the phenomenon of twinless twins. April 1989, Logan Airport, Boston. In the airline industry, 24-year-old Sue Taraskiewicz was something of a trailblazer. She had recently become only the 2nd woman hired by Northwest Airlines as a ground services employee on the ramp at Logan.
Hook up the ground power and put the AC on the aircraft.
It was just the kind of challenge Sue Taraskiewicz thrived on.
Sue loved being on the ramp. She liked doing the job. Sometimes she'd come home and say, I lift 1 million bags today, and they were 200 pounds each. She'd make a joke out of it, but she never came complaining about the job. She loved it.
Trying to set a world record tonight.
Somebody's got to do your work.
Hey, we got plenty of time on this.
Yeah, you don't have to do the paperwork.
At Northwest, Sue had worked her way up from cleaning the interiors of jets to landing the new job.
I'll get that for you.
3 years later, in 1992, she was promoted to ramp supervisor, the first woman ever to hold that position.
Oh, let me. Let me. All right, take off, boys.
6:30 like every morning, you know? Come around here to push this car out of the way. I see that. I know it's not oil. I call you guys.
On the morning of September 14th, 1992, Sue Taraskiewicz's car was discovered at an auto body shop not far from the airport.
Geez, see if you can pop that trunk latch, will you?
In the trunk was Sue's body. She had been bludgeoned and then stabbed multiple times. Even though Sue had been neither robbed nor sexually molested, her family assumed she had been targeted at random.
Driver's license, credit cards, everything's still here.
But who? Who could have wanted Sue Taraskiewicz dead? For more than a year, Sue's family grieved and pondered that disturbing question. Then at Christmas time 1993, Marlene Taraskiewicz finally ventured into her daughter's room for the first time since the murder.
I tried many times to go in Sue's room, you know, you've got to do this. It's a year. You know you should. Let me get something that was special to her, and we'll just put it out. And I started going into her closet, and I saw a briefcase there.
Inside the briefcase was a diary, and its contents were shocking. In wrenching detail, Sue had documented accounts of sexual harassment she had endured at Northwest, ugly incidents Sue had never mentioned to her family. The journal included quotes of graffiti, insulting, demeaning, and lurid, that had been etched in the men's rooms at the airport and even in the cargo holds of jets.
What I read, the filth that somebody would write about my Susan. And I thought, is this why she was murdered? And we thought, this is it. We have solved Susan's murder.
In numerous passages, Sue described what appeared to be blatant acts of hostility. Typical was a following entry.
April 12th, 1989. Bobby came into the break room.
Hey, that's my radio.
What?
That's my radio.
I'll buy you a new one. What'd you do that for? The Bruins lost.
He left the room and one of my coworkers picked up the radio and plugged it in to see if it still worked.
Yay, thanks.
Bobby came back into the room.
Sue's boyfriend at the time, who also worked at the airport, spoke to Bobby and demanded that he replace the radio.
Hey, Bobby,
Sue confronted Bobby later that day.
Did you get my radio yet?
It's in the mail.
Come on, Bobby. That was the radio that my mother got me for Christmas.
What are you gonna do, send your little punk boyfriend over here again? Is he gonna beat me up? He's lucky I didn't kill him.
Sue filed numerous formal complaints with the management of Northwest Airlines and her union, but little was done to curb the harassment. In time, the abuse escalated to torrents of anonymous graffiti, all of it targeting Sue T.
It wasn't apparently just one or two pieces of graffiti that made their way up and then were washed away. It was repeated cases of graffiti of varying kinds, in some cases amounting to death threats against other workers who were supporting Sue. Sue also talks in her diary about getting anonymous phone calls all hours of the night. She records some of the times the phone calls happen.
Who's there? Who is this?
She also had instances where her car was vandalized, her boyfriend's car was vandalized, friends who were supporting her had their cars vandalized.
Curiously, Sue's diary covered only her first 8.5 months in her new job, but apparently the discrimination continued.
Thanks a lot, honey.
Despite the abuse, Sue's ambition didn't flag. In February 1992, she was promoted to ramp supervisor and put in charge of the employees she once worked with on the tarmac.
Okay, well, I'll take care of the missing baggage, but I need you to take your crew and get the next 2 flights.
Initially, Sue had been passed over for the promotion when a man in her union had illegally bid for the job. Sue filed a grievance and won, becoming the first female to hold the position. But the victory was not without its detractors.
Okay, I'll do that here.
A lot of them felt that they didn't want any females being their boss, that should be a man's job. It didn't stop her from coming to work. It didn't stop her from standing up to things that she thought was wrong.
Some men resent a woman, I think, in a position of authority, while there's others that like it and that deal with it. But at Northwest, there was definitely the element that had a problem with it. I think she was very conscientious about her job. She always tried to make it a better place to work. She really believed that she could make a difference there for minorities and women that worked there.
Some good OT, huh?
Ching. You get to spend some of your hard-earned money?
Yeah, right. Like between this and my supervising shifts, when?
A few months after Sue's promotion, the graffiti became more sinister.
I'm thinking of maybe taking a break.
It may have been the beginning of the end.
I am so sick of this.
So you're gonna have to call somebody.
Yeah, who? Who haven't I talked to
I don't
yet?
know.
Sue and I had a meeting at Northwest that did not go well. During the meeting, she started to cry, and she was crying so hard she really couldn't control herself. She cried into the ladies' room. She was sobbing.
Sue, are you out there? Oh, damn, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I started to cry. I broke a rule, damn.
I was concerned about the ongoing emotional toll that it was taking on her. She told me that she was afraid. She did not say that she was afraid for her life, but now that I look back, I take it that possibly she meant she was afraid for her life.
Hey, Dennis! I'm gonna go on a sandwich run to the roast beef place.
I'll go. We're running all over tonight, huh?
No, these guys are working hard. I want to treat them. So
September 12, 1992. During a graveyard shift, Sue volunteered to go to a restaurant to pick up sandwiches for her crew. Sue Taraskiewicz never returned. No one reported her missing for a day and a half.
When we first found out that Sue was murdered, the very first question we asked was, did Sue ever do this before? Did she ever leave work and not come back? And we were told never. Why did nobody report her missing? Is there a cover-up of some sort? I'm not sure.
Authorities now believe that Sue's death may have been connected to a federal investigation of Northwest that took place in the summer of 1992. Evidently, some baggage handlers at the Boston facility had been operating a stolen credit card ring. When shipments of new credit cards were transported on Northwest jets, a group of workers was stealing them, using them, and selling them. The scam netted over $7 million. 10 Northwest employees were eventually indicted and given various sentences. To Marlene Taraskiewicz, some of the names were very familiar.
They were names of people that were in Sue's diary that had sexually harassed her from day one. I believe that Susan was set up by her co-workers, that for whatever reason, they were afraid that Susan was going to squeal on something.
As far as the airport's concerned, a lot of people there knew her. A lot of people knew what was going on around her. We've talked to a lot of them. They've given us information, but I think we all believe that somebody there has more.
Northwest Airlines declined our request to be interviewed for this story. The authorities are currently investigating more than one suspect, but lack the evidence to file charges. In the meantime, the Taraskiewicz family continues to seek justice in Sue's memory. Each year, on the anniversary of her death, they hold a candlelight vigil at the site where her body was found.
I feel that whoever murdered Susan, or whoever knows about her murder, how much longer can you go carrying this guilt? You're gonna have to find peace with yourself. And I'm asking, after 3 years, bring peace to yourself, bring peace to us. Take this murderer off the street.
Sue's family recently settled a sexual discrimination lawsuit against Northwest Airlines. Though the terms are undisclosed, it is known to be one of the largest discrimination settlements ever granted in Massachusetts. Next, a young father is murdered in cold blood as he arrives at work. They had it all: a loving marriage, a beautiful daughter, dreams of a full, rich life. Dreams that would vanish in an instant when Matt Flores, age 26, was gunned down in cold blood.
1 minute, life was great. We had everything. And the next minute, it was shattered. A part of me died that day that I'll never get back, and I'll never be the same person again. I don't look at things the same way. And I lost everything that day.
When Matt and Denise married in 1990, their friends called it the wedding of the century. Matt was a second lieutenant in the Army, who later served with distinction in Operation Desert Storm. Once Matt came home to Fort Stewart in Georgia, he and Denise started a family. In July of 1993, Danielle was born. 8 months later, Matt began a promising career as an engineer at Applied Materials Incorporated, a computer company based in California's Silicon Valley.
It was our new start in life as a family, us making decisions instead of the military. And this was his dream come true. He'd finished with the military, he'd done everything right, and now he had landed the job of his dreams.
March 24th, 1994, Matt's 9th day at his new job. That morning, he was driving a white Chevy Corsica, which a company had rented for him. At around 8:12 a.m., Matt arrived at work. He parked in an unassigned space in the middle of the lot. Nearby, another employee sat listening to a talk show on her car radio.
The female witness realized that he'd been shot and then ran to another person for help, and then also ran to a shuttle bus to try and get somebody to call 911 and ask for more help.
Call security!
Approximately 4 or 5 uniformed officers responded immediately, including a field supervisor. Paramedics and fire also responded immediately, but they were not able to revive him, and he was pronounced dead at the scene.
Matt Flores had been shot once in the back of the head at point-blank range. Matt probably never saw his killer, and incredibly, no one else did either, even though there were more than 20 people in the parking lot at the time.
They said that he was assassinated, basically. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I kept thinking, this is not happening. This is not happening.
He was never involved in anything in terms of drugs, gambling, fooling around, any of the things that you would think would lead to being murdered. Nothing.
We couldn't find anybody that didn't like Matt. And not only did they not like him, everybody we met, he was somebody you'd be proud to have as a son or a brother. He had no dark or secret side to him. This does not make sense.
The investigation was hampered by a terrible piece of bad luck. Despite the presence of several security cameras trained on the parking lot, the killing itself took place in a blind spot just out of view. However, one of the cameras did give the police their most significant lead. They have asked us not to broadcast the tape. What you are about to see is a precise recreation of what the tape reveals.
About 20 minutes before the shooting, there was a 2-door sport model Ford Explorer that came into the parking lot and parked in one of the parking stalls facing directly into the video camera lens. A few seconds later, a 2-door white Ford Probe came in the same lane that Matt would take later. The Explorer backed up, followed the white Probe. The Ford Probe could look something like Matt's rental, which was a white Chevy Corsica. About 4 minutes before the shooting, we see that same Explorer exiting the parking lot, and then about 3 minutes before the shooting, we see the vehicle come back into the parking lot and go in the direction of where the shooting occurred.
At 8:12 a.m., 2 minutes before the shooting, 2 cars enter the lot. One is driven by the female eyewitness, the other by Matt Flores. At 8:14, the murder takes place, just out of camera range. Approximately 20 seconds later, the Ford Explorer is seen leaving the parking lot for the last time.
By all accounts, the Explorer is a suspicious vehicle. I think if somebody were to watch the videotape and see the activities of the vehicle that morning, and to see it leave right after Matt was shot, they certainly could say that the vehicle was stalking Matt that morning.
Because the Explorer initially followed a car that looked like Matt's, Sergeant Teal believes the murder may have been a case of mistaken identity.
Perhaps somebody went to that parking lot that morning to do harm to somebody else, and they got the wrong person.
Look at the flowers. There's a door. Whoever did this to him, I want them to know what they've taken, not only from Matt, but what they've taken from myself and Danielle and his family. I don't think she remembers them anymore. She was too little. I plan on showing her all the videos that we have so she knows what kind of a daddy that she had. But at the same time, she won't know what it feels like for Daddy to hug her.
Hi, are you waving?
A $100,000 award is being offered by Applied Materials Incorporated for information leading to the arrest and prosecution of Matt Flores' killer. To date, the authorities' most substantial clue is the Ford Explorer, which was videotaped in the parking lot. The vehicle is a two-door sport model manufactured between 1991 and 1994. It has a distinctive black trim on its lower panels. When we return, in Florida, an accused killer is on the run, and authorities need your help to track him down. January 11th, 1995, the Pasco County Courthouse in Dade City, Florida. A murder suspect, Albert Leon Fletcher.
What are you looking at?
In police lingo, Albert Leon Fletcher was in the wind. Fletcher is a felon with a violent criminal history dating back to age 15. He is currently accused of armed robbery, aggravated assault and battery, and murder. Amazingly, all the charges stem from a single 24-hour period. It began on April Fool's Day, 1993. That night, Fletcher and his cousin Douglas Porter allegedly broke into a home in Dade City, Florida. They stole several guns, including a sawed-off shotgun. The rampage was on. April 2nd, 10 p.m., Lakeland, Florida. Two couples pulled up in front of a grocery store. Fletcher and Porter pulled up right behind them.
Jerks.
Oh, yeah. Get in here with us, go play?
Come on. Why don't you come over here?
Oh, yeah.
Come on. Come on. Come on. We want to play with you. Come on. I love you.
Hey, what's your problem?
They start yelling at me, hey, you better get your, back in the car. At that time, something come over me. I was just enraged, and I took off after him.
Get him, Doug. Come on.
He poked the barrel right in my eye. The only thing I could think of is to get the gun out of my face, so I pushed it forward. I thought they were out to really hurt somebody that night. They were on a mission to kill somebody, mess with somebody all night long, and they didn't have any remorse whatsoever for what they were doing.
11 p.m. 16-year-old Jason Hartman worked nights at a pizza parlor. That night, he couldn't start his car.
Hey, what do you want? Open the door. No. Open the door now. No. Open the damn door. Open up! Hurry up!
What's the matter?
Luke, you gotta call the police. This guy out there just tried to steal my car. Come on. Come on, let's get it.
Fletcher gave up on the car and took off with Porter. For the second time that night, they left behind a victim who knew he had just gotten very lucky. Two hours later, a lonely stretch of highway outside town.
Nah, man. Get him. Let's get him. Come on.
Give me your money. Come on, give me the wallet. Give me your wallet.
Come on, let's go! Come on! What was that all about? Let's get out of here, man! What's going on? It just went off! I don't know! Get out of here! Hurry up!
Police identified the murdered man as 32-year-old Nelson Medina. He left behind a wife and 2 young children. While police were at the scene of Medina's death, another officer spotted Fletcher and Porter across town.
Driver, step out of the vehicle, please. I need to see some identification. You too.
What's the problem?
Just let me see some ID.
I knew at the scene of the murder, based on the expended rifle casing and the wound of Medina, that I was looking at someone with a rifle and a shotgun.
Fletcher and Porter were charged with first-degree murder and scheduled to be tried separately. Douglas Porter was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. But Albert Leon Fletcher escaped before he could be brought to trial. He hasn't been seen since.
I worked homicide for 9 years. During that time, I've met 2 people that I consider to be sociopaths. A person without a conscience. Lee Fletcher is one.
Through our investigation, we have been told that he has made statements to relatives that he will not be taken alive and is extremely dangerous and possibly armed.
Next, many researchers believe twins are linked by a mysterious psychic bond. But what happens to that bond if one twin dies? Consider the intriguing case of Elvis Presley and his deceased twin brother. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. Everyone knows the life story of this shy teenager turned superstar. But what if Elvis had a twin? Imagine 2 Elvises performing on stage at the same time. It's not that far-fetched. Few people know that Elvis Presley was haunted his entire life by the specter of his dead twin brother, Jesse Guerin. Elvis was born in this shotgun shack in East Tupelo, Mississippi. Records show that his twin brother's birth preceded his own by more than half an hour. Tragically, by the time Elvis was born, Jesse Guerin Presley had already been declared dead. Jesse was buried in an unmarked grave in this nearby cemetery. Today, many believe his death had profound emotional consequences for Elvis, serving as a driving force behind both his creative genius and his self-destructive tendencies.
When Elvis was a child, 5, 6 years old, he used to tell me that he used to hear a voice inside of his head, and it used to confuse him, and it used to scare him a little bit, and he was afraid to mention it to anyone. He thought Perhaps it was his brother Jesse communicating to him, telling him what to do.
Music was Elvis's way of communicating with Jesse. The two had been bonded before they were born intrauterинely with the rhythm and the voice of the Fundamentalist Assembly of God Church, a very important cornerstone for understanding Elvis.
Dr. Peter Whitmer has devoted years to studying the psychology of twins, specifically those who have been separated by death, whether in the womb or later as children and adults. The surviving twin is often referred to as a twinless twin.
Many twinless twins, including Elvis, tend to become, shall we say, superstitious. Elvis would look to his twin for signs of guidance, for signs of strength. Elvis also felt that Jesse was his compass, was a sign of direction, that Elvis should, in fact, do great things, that had the two of them been united, they would have been able to do great things, that they were separated. Elvis alone had to be the creator, the perfectionist.
When Elvis died, there was almost nothing known about the psychology of twinless twins. In fact, there are at least 500,000 twinless twins in the world today. They are united by a common yet unexplained phenomenon, the unshakable conviction that the spirit of the lost twin lives on.
There's these little happenings where you're really reminded that your twin is not totally gone, that there's little occurrences that happen where you just sense his presence, not in a physical way, but nonetheless there.
I do feel the presence of someone else in my life. It's only been recently that I've thought to put it in that framework of the twin. I've thought of it more as a guardian angel or a spiritual presence.
For some of us, it can be a very recent experience. For myself,
Dr. Raymond Brandt coined the term twinless twin and is founder of the Twinless Twin Support Group, which has members nationwide.
separation and isolation. Twins are unique because there's one thing that a twin, a multiple, has that single birth people do not, and that's called uteral bonding. Of course, today with ultrasounds and studying twin behaviors in utero, we realize that they hug and what appears to be kissing and even perhaps slugging or pushing at each other. We understand and accept today that uteral bonding begins at the moment of conception.
Consider the case of Deanne Seitz. Born as an identical twin, Deanne became twinless when her sister Shannon died just 5 hours after birth.
She may have died 22 years ago, but I can feel her presence all the time. Shannon's my guardian angel. She watches over me. You know, she kind of makes sure nothing really bad happens to me or my family.
In 1994, Deanne had perhaps her most dramatic psychic experience with her lost twin. She believes her sister saved her life.
I was on my way to work. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was going down the off-ramp, and this feeling came over me. I could feel Shannon's presence really strong next to me. And then, almost like her presence came over me and had me pull over to the right and then stop. And then not even 5 seconds later, Shannon was telling me to pull over before I got hit. It wasn't as if she said, you know, hello, I'm here. It's just the feeling, the security of her being around.
Because my twin died in the womb, I lived and she died. There's a sense that I've carried with me forever that somehow I took too much. For example, I must have eaten all the food, or, you know, I was the one who lived. And I carried a deep sense of guilt about being here.
It's not until we
That is the downside, the guilt. Many people believe it is guilt that drives twinless twins to great heights or to the depths of self-destruction. Some say the root cause of Elvis Presley's personal torment was his grieving and feelings of responsibility for his twin brother's death. Larry Geller recalls a conversation which took place a year before Elvis passed away.
And I sat down with him. He said, man, I had a dream the other night. I can't get it out of my head, I gotta tell you. there I was with my twin brother, Jesse. He had the same hairstyle, the sideburns, the same eyes. One spotlight on him, one spotlight on me. But Larry, the strangest thing, I started to feel guilty. I felt like I did something wrong, and I don't know why. It's the weirdest feeling. And I said, well, maybe it's kind of simple. You lived and he didn't.
Elvis never was able to resolve his psychological angst over the death of Jesse. It was something that was at the core of all of his behavior. From my perspective, his substance abuse, his self-abuse in general, his working himself to death, was the desire to reunite with Jesse.
I remember one time we were talking, and he was telling me about his mother. He used to question her about his twin brother, Jesse Guerin. And she said to him, Elvis, God took your twin brother back home to heaven, and someday we'll all be together again. And Elvis said to me, Lawrence, I believe that. We're all going home someday. I'm going to be with my twin brother again.
For now, medical science has no valid explanation for the apparent psychic experiences of twinless twins. And though some might see twinless twins as leading troubled lives, the twins themselves believe that they have been gifted. Next time on Unsolved Mysteries, he is one of the most notorious murderers in history. He claimed 49 lives over a 2-year period, but he was never brought to justice. In a special report, we'll bring you an exclusive interview with a man who believes his own brother was the infamous Green River Killer. Join me again next Friday for another intriguing edition of Unsolved Mysteries.